G'day guys, welcome back to the Boundary Riders Podcast. Today we're up to episode 32. I just checked on my phone, I had to. Got a few things to actually cover today. We're going to be talking about actually the predictions that I made right back at the start of the season, and we'll actually be comparing them to how the season ended. We'll be taking a look at a couple of trade news, probably more the completed stuff, a couple of rumours that have surfaced today. And I wanted to talk a little bit about an article that's came out recently about the equality in the AFL. But firstly, I want to talk about the Clayton Oliver move now, or non-move. Now, I just want to take a big old little congratulations to everyone who doubted what me and my brother were saying in that episode, in that video about the trade news. I'm sorry, I just gave the camera the finger. I 100% knew that was complete crap. Now, I know there's been a lot of reports coming out saying that there was a disciplinary meeting for Clayton Oliver to tell him to shape up or he'll be shipped off. And I really don't know how true they are based on the fact that one day, I think it was Tom Morris came out and said that he was, on the move, basically, that everything was talked about it. And then the next day, Melbourne come out and say that, they didn't come out and say, but basically all the news was that he wasn't going. I find it very hard to believe that he was on the trade table to begin with. I know that there's reports saying that he wanted to go. That Melbourne were happy to let him go, and I think even a couple of clubs were interested in him. I just find them very hard to believe in the end because the way this story went and then was gone so quickly, I think was an absolute joke in my opinion. I think they had very little evidence to begin with. I think we even saw Tom Morris over on Twitter, if anyone follows him for any other reason other than his trade news, which is very far-fetched for a lot of the moments at the moment. I wouldn't want to believe anything from him. But anyway, he came out and said that he tried to talk to Melbourne, and at the point when he made the tweet that they didn't respond, because God forbid they have to respond to you, Tom, you fucking dork. Oh my God, they didn't respond to a journalist who's looking just to get clicks and doesn't give a fuck about the actual story, if it's true or not. Sorry they didn't respond to you quickly. But then he came out and reported that Melbourne did give him a statement, but didn't say that they weren't going to trade Clayton Oliver. So not mentioning that they were planning to or any talks about it, because they didn't outright rule it out that Clayton Oliver could be on the move. I just think that is such shit reporting, and I just want to take a quick drink and a cheers to the rest of yous because me and my brother were right. Yeah. Anyway, someone said we had no fucking clue. How about you, bro? You had no bloody clue as well, believing in a journalist from the AFL that someone was on the move. I believe it a little bit more when they say that they've made an official trade request, more than them just making speculation, because a lot of speculation is just little to no evidence whatsoever and just spinning something out of the dryer at this point, because trying to get... It was just such a crap story and it made no sense. The fact, yes, I believe there was a disciplinary meeting for Clayton Oliver, but by no means do I think that there was trade talk about him whatsoever. I think there would have been a lot of news coming up about it to then ship him off. I think that was just a farce, and I think that was a crap story, and I think that the journalism standard in this country is a fucking joke. Not just in sport, I think in all facets of journalism in this country is a joke, but in sport in general, it's now all about how many clicks you can get rather than the truth of the story, and I think that's just a joke. And I get that's how they get paid, but I think that it's an absolute joke. That's the way they've gone down, the route that they go down now. And I think there's even been talks about Tom Hawkins potentially leaving next year. I just think, how could you possibly know anything about Tom Hawkins next year when he's not contracted next year, but also he's about 34, 35. So to say that he's on, basically hinting that he's on the move next year is just a joke. And I think that was Tom Morris as well. So I don't really give a shit about his comments that he made in the past about the reason why he got let go of Fox Footy at the time. I think he said some colleague there was homosexual. So and said some homophobic comment. I can't remember what it was, so I'm not going to try and guess it. But yeah, I don't really care. I mean, not that I don't care about that, but I don't think that's got anything to do with his journalism standard. But his journalistic standard is a fucking joke. And he should be ashamed of himself that he's not making up these stories, but just trying to take a smidgen of information, like him having a disciplinary meeting, and automatically trying to turn that into he's going to be traded away from Melbourne. I think that was a joke. And yeah, I think I could ramble about how bullshit that was all day. and, gloat about how we were right, but I think that's not very entertaining. So I think we'll move on quickly. And considering we're talking about trade, let's just move into some trade news as we speak. A lot of trades have actually gone through in the first day. A couple of free agency moves have already happened as well. We'll quickly have a look at them. So at this stage, the completed trades, this is 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday. This is probably coming out Tuesday morning. So I don't know if there'll be any more trades done today. We will see, though. But at this stage, we have Port Adelaide getting some picks loading up for potential moves for Radicalier and Zerk Thatcher and Jordan Sweet as well. But they have received a second-round pick for this year from Fremantle, which is pick 23 at this stage, and a future second-round pick tied to Fremantle. And Fremantle have got Port Adelaide's future first-round pick for next year. Another pick swap here. Actually, no, we'll talk about that last because that's what I really want to talk about. We've also got some free agency moves. Tom Doedee has gone to Brisbane, and Adelaide have got pick 19 in the compensation, which makes no sense because Hawthorn got pick 19 from Sydney way back 10 years ago when he left Hawthorn to go to Sydney. He got the exact same pick. It makes no sense. I know it's 10 years apart, but how does that make any sense? And the fact that Ben Mackay is potentially going for a pick 3. I know it's on money and that sort of stuff, but I just don't know how that makes any sort of sense. But anyway, Joel Hamling has moved to Sydney as a free agent, unrestricted, so that's basically done. Matt Flynn went on Friday when free agency opened. He has gone to the West Coast Eagles, and with GWS got pick 40. And the first one that was all done was James Jordan to the Swans, and Melbourne got pick 39 at this stage, which is an end of second round pick. I think that Sydney have done very well to start off with. Essendon have got a couple of players calling for a trade request. One of them is Xavier Dersma, which just recently came out. He's wanting to move to Essendon. Along with that, also Jade Gresham, free agent. He wants to move to Essendon as well. In other news, we have Jack Billings looking to move from the Saints. At this stage, there may be a little bit of interest from Collingwood, but not as much as people are reporting. They have got mild interest at best, so don't believe all that. Paddy Dow has requested a move to the Saints. I think it's pretty good for them. Taylor Adams has requested a trade to the Swans. I don't know how that one's going to get done, to be honest, because Collingwood are very confident they want to hold him to his contract for another year. So we'll see how that plays out. Tom Fullerton from the Brisbane Lions has requested a trade to Melbourne. I don't understand why these ruckmen want to go and sit in the reserves for Melbourne for the rest of their career, but anyway, Tom Fullerton wants to move to Melbourne. Nick Caulfield has requested a move to the Bulldogs. Mabior Chol has requested a move to Hawthorn. And that's basically all the confirmed news at this stage. But a couple of things that I want to talk about is a massive story coming out. And this is an official move. And it's not from Tom Morris. So I'm going to take it on face value. I think it could be true. It's a massive one. But Lachie Schultz has requested a move from Fremantle to Collingwood. That is shocking for Fremantle. They've already lost Joel Hamling, who's a good, defender. He'd definitely be in the team if they get an injury to a key back next year. But Lachie Schultz, top 5 player for Fremantle, and a top 5 player, a small forward in the comp. I mean, he had a massive year for Fremantle and was one of their best players behind, Alex Pearce, Andrew Brayshaw, Caleb Sarong. He'd be right up there in their top 5 best players. I know Sean Darcy as well, but he's a bit injured this year. He would be up there. And for him to request a trade to Collingwood, that is massive. He's still got another 12 months on his contract. If I'm Fremantle, I know it's harsh, but I would be locking him away and saying, look, man, you can't leave for another 12 months. I know that's harsh, but this guy is one of their most important players. And to lose him to a premiership favourite in Collingwood, that would be huge for Freo. The fact that they don't really have a potent forward line to begin with, to lose one of their top goal scorers would be terrible. So I really don't know how this shapes up. If Fremantle are willing to let him go, they need to ask for huge overs, whether it be a player and a top pick or something like that. I think, honestly, first round pick, definitely for Lachie Schultz, if not in the top 10. Top 15, maybe, not top 10. But top 15, I think definitely it's worth Lachie Schultz because he is a very good player. And I think he's one of the most underrated players in the comp. So I think if Collingwood can get that one done, I think that may be one of the biggest trades of the trade period and one of the best players to move in the trade period as well. Now, the trade that I wanted to talk about that has been completed is a pick swap between the Gold Coast Suns and the Western Bulldogs. Now, we've heard for a while now that the Gold Coast have wanted to look to get rid of their pick 4 in exchange for a couple of top draft picks because they want to get their academy players. Their names escape me at this point, sorry. But anyway, The Bulldogs have won that race. They have retrieved pick 4, but boy, have they paid overs for it. So in this trade, the Bulldogs have got pick 4, 2 third-round picks, which is pick 56 and pick 51, and the future first-round pick for the Gold Coast Suns. So, I mean, look, it's a pretty good... that sounds okay on paper to get pick 4. But the Gold Coast have received 2 first-round picks, pick 10 and pick 17, along with a first-round pick for the Bulldogs next year. That is 3 first-round picks essentially for pick 4, in my opinion. I mean, I guess the future first for the Gold Coast isn't that... could be pretty similar to the Bulldogs. So my opinion is it seems like way overs for the Bulldogs, in my opinion, to pay the pick 4. Who knows what they pick up in the draft? I haven't looked at the draft combine too much in the draft, like fantasy drafts at this stage, who's going to go where. But that just seems like a lot. Like pick 10 and pick 17 and a future first round pick to get pick 4, essentially. That seems like a huge amount, in my opinion. I don't know. I just think that the Gold Coast Suns have definitely won this pick. They definitely get their draftees that they wanted from their academy, and I don't think they need any like top draftees that aren't locked to staying at the Gold Coast, essentially. So I think the Gold Coast have won that trade 100%, and so far I do think Sydney are probably in the box seat for the best, because obviously it's been a couple of days. They've already picked up 2 players. They've got Brodie Grundy still to go, and Taylor Adams if they can get that done. As a Swans fan, I think that Brodie Grundy's a must. Taylor Adams, I do understand why Sydney are looking for him, because Sydney's midfield is very, very young. And I think it was Sydney's list manager, or whoever it was, who focuses on the list changes this year. I think it was Charlie Gardner, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But he did say that the average premiership team for midfield age is around 27, 28. And Sydney's main midfield is about 23 years of age. And of course, Callum Mills will be out for the majority of the first half of the season. So I think it's going to be a pretty good one for Sydney if they can get Taylor Adams over the line. He is 31 though, so Sydney are definitely looking at the now. Brodie Grundy's pretty high up there now, high 20s I think his age. Joel Hamling's 30 and Taylor Adams is 31. So only player right now that they're picking up as young is James Jordan. So Sydney are thinking right now they are in the premiership window. I tend to agree as a Swans fan. I think that Sydney should be looking for a premiership in the next couple of years, because I think if they don't, I think they've got the list to build a bit of a dynasty sort of list. They've got a very good young list, the Swans. If they can bring a couple of experienced players in to help them, I think they could definitely build a good couple of years, the Swans. Especially now with Buddy Franklin gone, they can definitely build a full list rather than just their forward line. So I think it's really good for the Swans. Those are basically all the trade news right now. We'll obviously be doing a trade video later in the week, so there'll be a lot more trade rumours and stuff talking about that. And we'll be talking about more completed trades. But at this stage, as of Monday afternoon, that is all the trades completed. So what I wanted to talk about today that's a little bit off of the trade news was article written in the Western Australian. So, the main part of it is the equality in the AFL. Obviously, it's very hard to make it very equal, because you have to play in Victoria a lot more than you have to play in other states. But I do think there is a way to make it a little bit more equal than it currently is. The fact that so many clubs in Victoria only leave once every month is very unfair for the interstate teams. The fact that the interstate teams have to leave every 2 weeks most of the time is pretty unfair. And not so much the finals. I think the finals, if you're on top like Melbourne, Collingwood were, I think that it's fair enough. Obviously, it was at the MCG. And I think, to be honest, even though I'm from South Australia, I do believe the grand final should be played at the MCG, because it is the biggest ground in Australia. And, I think if it was like in Sydney and we could only get 40,000 at the SCG for a grand final, it wouldn't be as good. And I don't think it should be played at a rugby ground. I don't think it should be played at... I think it's called a core... Is it a core stadium now, the rugby stadium? Or is it... I know it was ANZ when Sydney used to play there. I can't remember what it's called now. But, yeah, I don't think an AFL grand final should be played there. So, I think it's fair enough that it's been played in Melbourne. I do think there is a fair argument to say that Western Australia, if they make the grand final and are the home team, they deserve a grand final at the stadium. Same with Port Adelaide or the Crows. I just think clubs like Brisbane and Sydney can't really have a grand final down at their current locations, because holding a 40,000 crowd at a grand final is pretty poor. I mean, this is the game of the country. To have a 40,000 at the ground would be pretty poor, in my opinion. So, again, obviously in the COVID years, they had to play it somewhere else, but I think it should be played at the MCG. However, I think there should be a lot more advantages for interstate clubs in finals. I think they should be having an extra day's break, if that's the case. So, let's say, for example, the prelim finals. I think Brisbane should have had the Friday night game, and Collingwood should have had the Saturday game if Brisbane finished on top of them. So I think that should have been the fair case. As it stands, I think it was fine because, to an extent, I think Collingwood should have had the Friday night game to have that extra day to prepare. But I do think that scheduling should be changed on the base of fairness and stuff. I do think that these Victorian clubs shouldn't play. What am I trying to say here? They shouldn't be playing as many games in Victoria as they do. I think they should be playing a lot more away games. If that even means that occasionally they have to play 2 weeks in a row away from home, and then that happens multiple times a season, not just once or twice, like 4 or 5 times, I think that would be fair. I'm not saying that if they play, let's say Collingwood were playing Gold Coast twice. I'm not saying that they should play both their games against the Gold Coast twice up at the Gold Coast home ground. But I do think that if you're playing interstate teams, you should be playing them predominantly at the other team's home ground if they're playing them once. And then twice, then you play them at home as well. I think there are some places where they can make it a lot more equal for the interstate clubs. And I think an interesting statistic was brought up that since, I think, 2013, only 2 clubs outside of Victoria have won the premiership, that being West Coast and... I've forgotten now. Is it only West Coast? I think it is. There's only... Yeah, is it West Coast the only team that's won a premiership since 2013? Outside of Victoria? I think it is. 2016 was the Bulldogs, 2017 was Richmond, 2018 was West Coast, 19 was Richmond. Yeah, I think it was. So basically in 10 years, only one team outside of Victoria has won a premiership. So I think there definitely needs to be a talk about that in the fixturing. I think there will be a lot more fixture changes next season. I think they need to make a bit of an overhaul with it. I think there should be some wildcard games for the finals. I think they should make it a lot more interesting than it currently is. I think that a wildcard round at the end of the season, not so much for... This may be a bit much. I don't know if this should happen, but I do think that the top team should have a lot more of a advantage as well. I think that if I had the keys and I was able to change the finals fixture, I would honestly let ninth make the 8 and first get a week off from the first week of the finals. That's just my thoughts. I don't know how they would do it exactly, but I think that ninth. I think they could have a round robin. I think they did in the VFL this year. They had a wild card match to see who made the finals, and I think that would be fair enough. Even if it was just the first elimination finals were 6th versus 9th, 7th versus 8th. That was terrible. I just list so bad then. If they were playing against each other, and then immediately if whoever won out of those games eliminates those other 2, and then we move to the first week of the finals, I think that would be interesting. So that means basically first would play 7th, second would play 6th, third would play 5th, and then 4th. I've just messed it up, haven't I? Yeah, so it would have a lot of things to do about it. But I think there should be a lot more changes to the fixturing next season, because I think at this stage it's very leaned on the Victorian side, and I think that's a fair enough statement to say. I don't think I should be outright abused for saying those sort of things. But that's just my opinion on the equality of the AFL at the moment. I think there are a lot of things that go Victoria's way. I do understand that it has to an extent, because there are so many teams for Victoria, and by no means do I think that they should kick a Victorian team out. I don't think that's the logical scenario. But I do think there needs to be equality on the fixturing. And also, if you're Collingwood fans and you're saying you've won 16 premierships, get over yourself. You've won, 2? You've not won 16. Yes, you've won 16 premierships. But that means Port Adelaide, the Port Adelaide Magpies. If Collingwood are going to claim 16 premierships, then Port Adelaide can claim, 38? Because they've won SANFL games. That's dumb. I don't think that... I get looking at that premiership tally, but it makes no sense anymore. That's way too... It's too washed now. Make it the fact we can still have that premiership tally, but the official tally should be the ones from the AFL era, where Hawthorn have 5 currently and lead all comers, because they've won those 5 premierships in the AFL era, not when VFL was still a thing and Carlton had 16 premierships. That doesn't mean shit anymore, because we're not a Victorian league anymore. We are an AFL league, an Australian Football League. That's the whole point of the fucking AFL, Collingwood. Don't be claiming Sweet 16. You have won 2 premierships in that time. Sorry, 3. Is it 3 when they... Is it 3? I think it's 3. Because 1990 they won as well. I think that's when the AFL started. Look, my AFL history isn't up to scratch. Don't bullshit me on that, alright? I still think I'm right in the other points, though. Anyway. Let's finally, before we end the podcast, we take a look at the finals predictions... my season predictions at the start of the year compared to how it all ended. Now, I've got my pictures here on the right-hand side, I think it's of me, or the other side of my face, which are here and here. So, this was my predictions at the start of 2023 of the ladder, thinking where people are going to go. And why is it not there? Alright, there we go. Alright, so that is what my ladder predictions were. We had the Cats top winning the premiership. We had Brisbane being the runners-up. I actually got that one right. That's a miracle. Melbourne in 3rd, Bulldogs 4th, Sydney 5th, Dockers 6th, Carlton 7th, Port Adelaide 8th, and then in the bottom 10 we had Richmond, Collingwood, I know, I'm an idiot, Gold Coast in 11th, GWS in 12th, St Kilda in 13th, Crows in 14th, Essendon 15th, West Coast 16th, Hawthorn 17th, and then North Melbourne at the bottom. So, looking at that on face value, I've made a lot of stupid ones, but I think at the time, I think I explained it why pretty well. The reason why I said Collingwood to finish 10th, which is a stupid reason now looking at it, was the fact that I thought they overachieved last year and that they were going to fall off. That obviously didn't happen, and Collingwood kept on going, and kudos to them because they had a massive year. And in my opinion, they probably deserve to win the premiership. The Bulldogs finishing 4th. I thought with the list that they currently got, I think they should be in the top 4. And to miss the finals is an absolute failure from the Bulldogs. So they should be really sad with their year. And if they don't improve next year, then Luke Beveridge's job is on the chopping block. Fremantle finishing 6th. I think they were definitely an overachieving team in 2022 because they definitely didn't do much this year. And to be honest, I think when they got on a bit of the run just before the bye, I think that was just a bit of luck because they had a pretty poor year, Freo. I think they definitely overachieved in 2022. And 2024 looks very, very bad if they lose Lachie Schultz. I'll just say that right now. GWS and St Kilda, I don't think anyone really predicted them to make the 8. So to have them down there, I don't think that's too far-fetched to say. I think I overachieved on West Coast, to be honest. I think the West Coast should have been bottom for me. I don't know why I didn't have them there, but they finished there. Hawthorn, they only finished one spot below where I said. Sorry, they finished one spot above where I said. But I do think they're definitely on the rise. Essendon and the Crows, I may be a little bit harsh on them. Richmond, I know Josh Jenkins said it, and I know it may be a bit harsh, but I tend to agree with him. I think they are a smoky finish bottom next year. Richmond, they don't have a very good list now. All their players have either retired or left, and I don't think Jacob Kaczynski is going to be good enough to hold up that forward line as the only tool. I know Tom Lynch comes back next year, so that may help a little bit, but I do think that Jacob Kaczynski is going to struggle a bit at times, and I just don't trust Richmond's defence and midfield at this stage. I think they're just a bit too thin in those areas. I think Dusty Martin, at the age of, I think he'll be 32 next year, I don't think he should be carrying the list the way he has throughout the end of the year. With Port Adelaide, I guess I was wrong, but at the end of the day, they went out in straight sets, so I can't be too wrong about that. The Swans, I did say they were going to fall off a bit, and with about 8 or 9 rounds to go, I was way off. But they did get into the finals in the end and did go out in the first week. Pretty close though against Carlton, so you got to give them credit for that. They did finish 8th in the end. To be honest, I think I explained it pretty well why these teams finished where they did. Obviously, the ending ladder was Collingwood 1st, Brisbane 2nd, Port 3rd, Melbourne 4th, Carlton 5th, Saints 6th, GWS 7th, Sydney 8th, and then the bottom 10 was the Bulldogs 9, Crows 10, Bombers 11, Cats 12, Richmond 13, Freo 14, Gold Coast 15, Hawthorn 16, North Melbourne 17th, and then rounding out the AFL ladder was West Coast at the bottom. So I will say Geelong. I know it's really interesting because they haven't really bagged out Geelong for the year that they had. They had a really poor year, and I know they had a lot of injuries, but So did the Swans, and they still made the 8 after getting demolished in the grand final by Geelong. So I think they had a huge hangover from the grand final. And other than Jeremy Cameron and Tom Atkins, I guess, I don't think any of the Geelong list had a better year than what they did in 2022. And that's not good because the rest of their list is pretty thin going into 2024. And not many players have been linked to the Cats. Not very young players either. So I think Geelong may be in for a bit of a tough couple of years if they don't start bringing in some big fish. And it looks like there has been some news about Sean Darcy potentially re-signing with the Dockers. So I would be interested if Geelong can really rise in the next couple of years because their list management, they went for a premiership in 2022. Their list management has been good. But last year wasn't the best. They only got Ollie Henry and Tanner Bruin, I believe. Looks like most of this trade period, they're just going to be losing players like Asava Radicalea. So I don't really know where Geelong sit next year. And they're looking to trade away their pick 7. So yeah, I think Geelong could be in a bit of all sorts. However, they were only they were 2 games out of the 8. So, that's quite a big miss actually looking at it. They missed out by 2 big games. And, Essendon, for a team like Essendon and the Crows to have beaten them from where, if you look at the start of the year, I think it's pretty poor from Geelong. So those were my predictions. I only got one right, which were Brisbane to get runners up. So, you can't always get it right. I can't remember what my brother picked. I'm pretty sure that he picked a couple pretty similar to me. I think he had the bottom 3, correct, if I'm being honest. I know he did have a couple of teams higher than what I did. I'm pretty sure he had Geelong at the front as well. Actually, no, I think he picked Brisbane for the flag, if I can recall. But anyway, that will be a lot different next year. I think that if I had to look at the ladder right now, the AFL ladder as it finished, just quickly, I think Port Adelaide are going to fall. I don't know if they'll fall out of the 8, but I think they're going to fall. St Kilda, I think, will fall. I think the Cats and the Tigers will fall from where they are. That's a big thing saying that. I think Hawthorn will rise. I think the Gold Coast will rise. I think the Swans will rise. I think Carlton will rise. And that's probably my big raisers and lowerers. I've really got question marks on Freo, the Bulldogs, GWS a little bit because I just don't know where they're going to be, and a little bit on Brisbane. Brisbane had their best list going into the season, and this season, in my opinion, and to miss out just is a bit disappointing for them. I think they'll bounce back, but there is a little bit of a question mark on them if they can go again, because I think after every grand final, sometimes teams can have that bit of a bad loss and then can't return back. I think Brisbane will return back pretty quickly, but they're probably my only question mark. They're a very small question mark. The other ones are a little bit bigger. But basically, guys, that is what I've got for predictions for early predictions for next season, I guess. My predictions from the start of the season to now, I only got the one correct, so I'm a loser, basically, is what we're saying. I think the slogan on the channel now should be, fuck Tom Morris. You absolute shit journalist. Not that there's any good ones, but you're not a very good one at all. I think you should lose your job. And I know people can sit there and say, you shouldn't really say you should lose your job. Journalists are there to report the truth, and he did not. And I don't think by any means was there half a truth to that story that Clayton Oliver was going to leave. And I know there'll be people out there that would disagree with me. I know Daniel Gorringe came out and put a tweet out saying the Clayton Oliver got dragged through the mud, and then a journalist, Stephen Quartermain, came out. Now look, Quarters, I love your commentary in the 2005 Grand Final, but for you to sit there and defend Tom Morris, of all people, after coming up with that fucking shocking story, go fuck yourself, I'm being honest. I think Daniel Gorringe is 100% right. These bloody journalists are more than happy to already sprout out, we need to talk about the mental health, and these big channels like Channel 7, Channel 9, Channel 10, Fox Footy, they're all happy to fucking sprout the points of we need to be talking about the players' mental health. And then as soon as a story like this comes out, where you could basically, they're grabbing at a straw and saying, so he had a disciplinary meeting at the end of the season. That means he's leaving. I think is absolutely terrible, and it just shows how poor the journalism industry is in this country at the moment. But anyway, guys, that's basically all we have for the podcast this week. Next week, we'll be doing the final bit of the trade period, and I think what we'll do, me and my brother, on Wednesday in a couple of weeks, I'm pretty sure the trade period ends not this week. I'm pretty sure the trade period finishes next Wednesday, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure. We will be doing a live stream in the last hour or two, just going through the trades, and then we'll probably have a little talk about the trade period. And then when the trade period ends, we will be doing a breakdown of like the best and worst trade period. Like we're grading all the teams. We'll be going through all that. We'll be looking at I think we'll probably do like the best 22 going into round 1 at that stage. I think that'd be a pretty good idea. We'll be doing a couple of AFL videos. I think we're going to be doing like AFL video once a week until the season begins next season. But yeah, the podcast will continue every single week as always. But I think we'll be moving it back a day or two just so my brother can be involved in it. Probably next week will probably be the same time. But after that, we'll probably be moving it to a Tuesday or a Wednesday so my brother can be involved. And we'll be talking a little bit more about different sports, a little bit about NFL, a little bit about the Premier League, English soccer, if anyone's wondering. But yeah, that's basically it from me, guys. Thanks for watching today's episode of the Boundary Riders Podcast. I've been thinking of a little tagline for it. Make sure, let me know if you think this is a good idea. The AFL Supporters Podcast. The People's Podcast. The AFL Supporters People. No, there's a line for it. I'm trying to think of it. I can't line it down perfectly at the moment. Make sure, let me know if you can think of something better than that. I'm thinking like the People's Podcast, but that sounds a bit cringe. So make sure, let me know down below. Thanks for watching today, guys. That's all from me, so I'll catch you all next time.